needs a solid foundation. Because if you don't have a solid foundation, all hope does is it feels like hype. It just feels like, let's go to church and, rah, 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 and we'll cheer you up and you'll feel a little bit brighter. But, it's, as I heard Joyce Meyer say way many years ago, there's the Sunday morning warriors, and then there's the Monday morning whiners. We're warring on Sunday and we're all excited, but then when it comes to Monday, all of a sudden, if you don't have something solid, it was just hype that happened on Sunday. We need more than hype. We need something solid. Chase Manhattan Bank, located downtown Manhattan, right down 66-story, massive skyscraper. When it was being built, halfway through the construction, they discovered what no builder ever wanted to learn. This monster structure was not being built on rock, as the engineers had thought, but was being built on quicksand. At some point, if they didn't fix it, the building would sink, topple over, and destroy other buildings around there. Something had to be done. Engineers explored the possibilities of dismantling the framework and somehow shoring it up with pilings. Geologists were brought in who advised that it would take about 1 million years for the quicksand to solidify. And someone came up with an innovative idea. They sank pipes deep into the quicksand and forced a solution of sodium silicate into the calcium chloride into the quicksand. And in just a few days, the quicksand turned into solid, watertight sandstone. And they were able to finish the building. I have 7 foundational pillars. Maybe what you feel right now in your life and think in your life right now is quicksand. You try to build on it, things just fall away. Things don't work. You can't conceive of having hope in certain areas. In order for hope to be built in someone's life, it needs a solid foundation. And here are different ones of them. Number 1, you need to recharge your battery. Nobody does well running on empty. How do you have hope if you're empty? Inside, if you don't have a reserve, the only way that David was able to encourage himself in the Lord is because he wasn't empty. He went back, it says, give me the ephod. He went back and remembered who he was and what God told him who he was. And then he talked to the priest. He had a reserve and some relationships. Recharge your batteries. Nobody does well running on empty. That has to do absolutely with your relationship with God. When I was 18, I had this VW bug. And I don't know, when you're young, I don't know what I was doing, but I let the speedometer go way down. And I was on I-75. And all of a sudden, I felt the engine like lose power. But then it came back, and then I looked at my odometer, and it was on E and a little below E, And there was a hill. And I was about 2 miles from the next exit. So I put the accelerator down to the floor. And I went as fast as I could, and at the top of the hill, the engine completely died. I had probably 1.5 miles. I don't know how fast I was going at that point. The top speed my VW would go. I was coasting along pretty good. It was really good because it was going downhill, right? But then what happens is that the on-ramp goes up, right? Well, I was going really fast, and I was going to the on-ramp, but I said, I'm not going to put a brake on. And I went around it, and the gas station was just around the corner, and I was 4 feet away from the pump. I rolled around to just 4 feet away from the pump. It's just a VW, you just get out and just push it 4 feet. It's no big deal.
Oh my goodness.
When you're empty.
That's the money's worth out of this.
What now? I got it. I tell you. You know, if you're going to run out of gas, it's not bad to do it if there's fuel right there. Most of us run out of gas, not at the gas station. That's the problem. Some of us don't realize how low it is until all of a sudden you get one discouragement, and then all of a sudden you realize, you know, I'm empty. If one discouragement makes you empty, you're almost empty, friend. You're running on fumes. If just a little bit knocks you way down, you know there's an issue between you and God at this point. There's an issue between you and God. You are low to the point. What good is the car at the side of the road? It doesn't. It's no good. We need to come to God. Now, especially in the winter, we know in the winter, cars, they say, you know, don't let it go too much below half tank or at least a quarter because the fuel line freeze, right? Don't let it get down there. And if you let the tank get down all the way to the bottom, what could happen? The junk at the bottom of your tanks could go right into your engine and clog it up. Did you know that? Don't let it get down that far. The fumes at the bottom of your life are not good for this. You know, have you realized that? Have you been around people that they are near the bottom? The fumes down there aren't good stuff. They got a lot of impurities in them. They're going to affect the running of that engine. Number 2, raise your expectations. Well, I concentrated on this one because this is what we're going to talk about a little bit more. But I'm going to put the 7 pillars out, and you can see what we're going to be doing here. Raise your expectations. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you expect. We'll talk about that for next week. Now, if you absolutely don't have any hope, you don't have expectations, because if I expect something and I don't get it, I'm just going to get... We'll deal with that next week. Refocus on the future. It's time to throw away your rearview mirror. No one goes forward well when they are looking back. It's not a question there. Number 4, play to your strengths. Be yourself. No one else is taken. Be yourself. You can't be somebody else. You'll never do it well. You'll never do it right. Number 5, refuse to go it alone. Never underestimate the power of support. Even the Lone Ranger had Tonto. 6, focus on what God is calling you to do. Burning the candle at both ends isn't as bright as you think. Do what God's called you to do. You have the strength to do that. And number 7, play great defense. Avoid at least these 5 toxic hope killers that can threaten your future. And we'll get into what those are.
Leave that up there, one.
Leave that up there?
Oh, I don't have my phone, right? Take a picture.
Well, just taping, so you can get it on YouTube.
You can get on YouTube. All right. Recharge your batteries. Nobody runs well on empty. Romans 12. Don't burn out. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame. I thought about this passage this last week. However, Jesus made a practice of withdrawing to remote places in order to pray. Now, if you think somebody's schedule is pressing, do you think the Son of God, that his schedule might be a little bit on a higher level than ours? You think that would be a tough schedule? You want to be the Son of God? You want to go into those shoes and see how that thing is? If you think your job's tough? Reminds me of Martin Luther, who said that he made a practice every day before he left the house to pray for 1 hour. And he says, on those days that were especially busy, I got up an hour early and prayed 2 hours. What a priority. Who could relate to Jesus? Did Jesus ever have any real friends? Have you ever thought about this? Who could relate? Do you have any sinless friends? I mean, he was without sin, right? Who could relate to him? Who could say, oh, I understand exactly what you're going through, Jesus. Oh, I know what it is to bear all the sin of the world. I know, and he knew early on that he was going to have to die. He knew early on, because at that wedding, his mom says, go to Jesus. And he says, woman, I don't want to do this, because he knew as soon as the miracle started, the time clock was clicking and he was going to end up dying. And he had a hesitation about starting the miracles. But it was time. Mary knew it. Who could relate to Jesus? He never had a house. What great job did he have? He never got married. He never had children. What did he have? At the end of his life, he looked back. Did he say, oh, I was really successful? What did he do? I think, in some ways, Jesus was the loneliest man on the face of the earth. Have you ever thought about that? And you know what? I felt kind of sorry for Jesus this last week. And then as I thought about it, and I thought about God talking to me about that, and as I was kind of before God on that, and you know what? Jesus didn't feel sorry about that. I felt sorry if I were in Jesus' shoes, is what I felt. Because I believe if we had the relationship with the Father, that Jesus had the relationship with the Father, we wouldn't be lonely. We wouldn't feel lonely. We would be connected. We would have so much fuel that the overflow would be happening all the time. That's why Jesus made it. It wasn't because of his friends. It wasn't because all of a sudden things were going great. It wasn't because he was understood. He never bought a house, never had a child, never had a wife, never had any. What did he have? The one thing he had that will make the biggest difference in our life. That's why it's number one. That he was, as it says here, fueled in a flame. But that described Jesus more than anything. My friends, that's what we need. That's what I need. That's what we all need. That's what the world needs. Are Christ followers who are fueled in a flame.
That's right.
And then Paul says in Timothy, to Timothy, who he's trying to raise up as a leader within the church, bodily exercise is all right, but spiritual exercise is much more important and is a tonic for all you do. It's a tonic for all you do. It's going to take you through anything. So exercise yourself spiritually. Take care of yourself. Be fueled in a flame. It's the same thing. Untended fires soon become nothing more than a pile of ashes. What do you think, folks? Not unless you keep yourselves fueled in a flame, you'll just be a pile of ashes. Let me tell you about Francis Gary Powers. On May 1, 1960, Powers took off from a military base in Pakistan to fly a reconnaissance mission 70,000 feet above the Soviet Union. Now that's up there. But early that spring, the Soviets had developed a surface-to-air missile that could reach that high-flying U-2s, and they shot down Powers' plane. Powers ejected from his crippled craft and was captured. He was convicted of espionage, sentenced to 3 years in prison and 7 years of hard labor. But he was released in 2 years when the United States agreed to a prisoner swap for some KGB master spy. After his release, he went on to pilot a series of the world's most dangerous experimental aircraft. Powers worked as a Lockheed test pilot and finally became a helicopter traffic reporter. He's a survivor. Years later, Powers lost his life in another crash. He was piloting a standard traffic helicopter for an LA television station when it went down. You know what happened? Why did he crash? His helicopter ran out of gas. Unbelievable. Survived the U-2 crash. He survived a Soviet prison. He survived thousands of experimental flights. But he died because he ran out of gas. Running on empty is a really bad life strategy. And many of us are running on empty. It's a really bad life strategy. We have to give time. All of a sudden, if you want help and you don't have a relationship with God, you're not going to all of a sudden pull a relationship with God out of the sky and help yourself. It's not going to happen. Hope is a waking dream. Wow, that's a good quote. It's a dream that's coming away. Because real hope is going to help you start dreaming again. Drained people are more susceptible to the toxic emotions of fear, anxiety, and discouragement. How many know that? If you're drained, fear, anxiety, and discouragement will take you down. Drained people make bad decisions. Drained people do not respond well, feel well, or live well. So there are really two questions that you really need to ask. What drains you? And what fuels you? What is it that drains you? What is it? What drains you? Unhealthy people. How about that? Jesus came to this world to help unhealthy people. But how many of us, when we see people coming, we say, "Oh great," or "Oh no"? Some people, they walk into your life and they're wind underneath your wings. And some people, they walk into your life and what are they? They're weights on your sails. They're weights on your sails or they're wind under your wings. And you say, "Oh great," or "Oh no." Emotionally healthy, unhealthy people are draining people. We all have them in our lives. I would just say, these are the people we need to minister to and not be friends with. Think about it. If they are your best friends, you're going down. I've had people tell me before, these are the people that I feel better around because I'm not as down around them because they're worse off than I. There's a thought. That thinking is going to take you lower. These are the people that you have to recover from after you're around them for a while. Do you have these people? Some years ago I heard that these people were called EGRs. Extra grace required. We all need extra grace. And I'm not saying Jesus came to save people, to reach people. Make it your ministry. But please don't make them your best friends.
Unhealthy people are like negative people because we did that strengths book at one time, and it talked about, you know, what affected you, and it's unhealthy. It's negative people. What else would fit under that title of? Would it be individuals that some people could take, say, people that were negative, and it wouldn't bring them down, but eventually, you know.
Well, if they're your best friends, if they're your best friends, you're going down.
Right.
I'm not saying they're horrible. They're irredeemable people. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying here is that these are people whose counsel you better not follow.
But it could look differently to each individual, because negative people might affect me, but might not affect someone else. Correct?
That's true, but it may be a blind spot in your area too, because if you continue to let whatever they have be on you, it may take you down.
Okay.
I think the big thing is that unhealthy people don't take responsibility. They're always blaming someone else.
Always, okay.
Maybe they've learned helplessness, but still there are people who are stuck, and you point out to them what they can do to get unstuck, and they won't take the steps.
Gotcha.
For
Okay.
instance,
Okay.
a woman who has so many regrets, and she's just withering away in depression, has gained loads of weight, etc. But she won't forgive herself. She won't believe God has forgiven her.
Or I think unhealthy people have bad boundaries.
Okay.
All of a sudden they will say, you have to do something for me. It's your fault. They have bad boundaries.
Okay.
All of a sudden they will blame you or say you need to do this for me, they will enter your life in a strange way. I would just say, who is it that really drains you? And then say, what is it about them that really drains me? You know, it possibly could be, I'm drained, or I feel drained because they're not doing what I want them to do. Well, that's not right. But I would say, you know, what is it about certain people that really drain you? And then, you know, I think some of the issues, like Benita said, is that you can talk, someone that's not healthy will not respond to accountability. Because it's very difficult. It's draining to be around somebody that doesn't want to progress. They're stuck and they don't want to progress.
Maybe they want to, but they aren't willing to take the
Steps.
first step.
They won't take the steps.
Okay.
Unhealthy people. Unkind critics. Unkind critics. Now, it's important to listen to advice and feedback, but remember the world is full of unkind critics who don't have your destiny in mind. We all have people in our lives who think they have a spiritual gift of criticism. That's not, criticism is not of the Lord.
Right.
And we have enough people who sort of want to be the Holy Spirit for us. No. A quote that helped me is that this is who critics are. If you have critics in your life, it's like listening. Listening to your critics is like bobbing for apples in a vat of acid. Listening to critics. And they could even have scripture, passage, and verse that you walk away and it's not helping you. It's draining you. Being too busy. We're too busy. As I said before, burning the candle at both ends is not as bright as you think. If you're about to burn out, or if you're burning out, slow down. You need to get fuel. You need to have fuel as a part of your daily schedule to get fueled up. You have to. You don't want to wait until you're empty to try to find the nearest gas station. You may not get there. Unnecessary guilt. You cannot feel enthusiasm and guilt at the same time. And sometimes we just don't forgive ourselves. We need to forget about the past and look forward to what lies ahead. Forget about the past. Don't wallow in your guilt. It's not going to help you. And 5, don't underestimate the impact of exposure. Your mind will think about whatever you most expose it to. What are you exposing yourself to on the TV? Yeah, that's incorrect spelling here, but anyway. Your mind will think. Come on back. There. Your mind will think about whatever you expose it to. On the internet, on the TV, movies, etc. Whatever you expose to is going to go deep inside your head. And it's either going to drain you or fuel you. People, the same thing. Whatever shapes your thinking will ultimately shape your actions, character, and destiny. This is about what drains you. And then, what fuels you. Invest in your own growth. Make that a priority. Your growth a priority. Your ongoing growth a priority. This is key. I think you understand this. Your relationship with God, a priority. Invest. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take ongoing time. Not just, I got to catch up this week or this month. It's an ongoing thing. Number 2, understand the power of worship. Worship is huge. It's huge for me. Getting outside of ourselves, getting our emotions involved in our relationship with God. Answer the question, I become motivated or inspired when? What truly inspires you in Jesus? You get inspired or motivated when? And answer the question and start putting that in your life. Number 4, build great relationships. Great relationships. And that takes time. There again, all this takes time. Build great relationships. That's going to help get you fueled. Certain people are just a lift. Pay attention to whose voice you are listening. Think about it. Every week, whose voice are you really listening to? What's the one voice that really has say over your life? What voice has your attention? And whatever shapes your thinking will ultimately shape your